Hey everyone, welcome to the Higher Points Podcast. I'm Nick Sowers here in the studio with my buddy Nate Hyatt. We're coming at you with a to the point. If this is your first time joining the podcast, it's just basically the opportunity where we take, 20, 30 minutes of your time or so, somewhere around in there, and just kind of talk about what's been happening, what's been bouncing around our mind, maybe some things we've learned, or just kind of whatever comes up in the conversation. We just kind of really honestly freelance this in a way, really. Nate never makes notes. Sometimes I make notes.
I got one word written down, and that's what I had for the last to the point, too.
Yeah, so we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, and it's been a while since we've been on here because we missed last week and everything. So just thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for continuing to listen. And it's cold out, dude.
It is.
It's cold when the fat man's cold.
Dude, it was a tough adjustment being 90 degrees and humid to 20 degrees and no humidity.
Well, I ended up like last night when I went to work, I had wool socks plus long underwear plus my pants plus a thermal shirt and my uniform shirt and then a sweater over that and then my vest over that.
Yep.
And I was like comfortable. And I always kind of overdress because I can always roll the windows
Peel
down.
layers off.
Yeah, I can always like roll windows down or whatever. But I was thinking to myself, my jacket even has 2 layers in it. It's got what they call a quote-unquote thin insulate layer plus the coat. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking to myself, if I put my jacket on, I've legit got 6 layers if you count my Kevlar and everything like that of clothing on. But thankfully I didn't have to do that.
Well, typically, Josh actually warned us. He's like, get ready to work outside all winter long. I was like, hey.
Daddy.
But I mean, I got undershirt, shirt, then probably a long sleeve, then a hoodie, then my vest, and sometimes a coat and overalls. That's what I wear during the winter.
Well, yeah, but typically you're going to be like you're moving around a lot, so you're creating a lot of body heat and stuff in general. But I've even been going to the gym and taking going into the sauna and sitting in there, which is really enjoyable. I'm actually really enjoying that.
I sat in it for the first time when I got back from vacation. Need to sweat some toxins out.
Yeah, you probably need to sweat a lot of Mr. $80 on 2 fucking drinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a really great science out there that I was reading that it was basically if you take 120 degrees for 20 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week, all these things that it would do. So I kind of started at 120, which really didn't do much. Mm-hmm. So I kind of bumped it to 125, which was okay. 130 is kind of where I was really starting to get a decent sweat on. So I think I'll kind of acclimate to the 130 for a while because it goes all the way up to 170. So I will kind of acclimate at the 130 for a little while and then maybe bump it up from there.
I think she had us set it. I didn't touch the thermostat deal when I got in. I think it was at 140. I think the day that I did it.
Well, you have to go in there and sign up and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So, but so one of the things that the things that have been bouncing around my brain this week were, I keep telling my kids, if you're living a life of comfort and convenience, you're not really accomplishing anything. If you're constantly in this place where you're comfortable or everything's convenient or whatever, you're obviously you're not building your mind or your body. Mm-hmm. And in today's day and age, I think that is a super important thing. And that's something that I work with my kids. And I had this opportunity because I'm one of those law enforcement officers that I like to, I guess, probably be my own worst critic.
Mm-hmm. Would you consider that being complacent? You're being complacent in life, you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you just kind of have this thought process, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And that's just not realistic of life, no matter whether you're a cop or a construction worker or you work McDonald's. It doesn't matter. You're going to be given challenges in life, whether that's death of family members or, issues with kids or whatever it is. And you have to be able to basically just kind of have the mental resiliency to push through that. And it sucks. I'm not sitting here saying I've got everything figured out and that everything's honky-dory and I'm perfect.
No one ever does.
Yeah, but I'm self-critical of myself, so I will spend time when I'm patrolling around and I'm listening to podcasts or books or whatever of a lot of self-reflection in the sense of like I hear something from either Andy's podcast or Ryan's or another one, or even, one of my favorite ones is Roanoke, Virginia's church. They have their layman church, and just things that like may come through that of like, whoa, like that was me, or that's me, and I need to like fix that or change that. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting because I got a little bit of a dose of reality of like, okay, keep walking the course that you're walking because you're doing a good job. I recently had the opportunity to conduct some training, and I intentionally pushed officers outside their comfort zone. Like, because I know that at the end of the day, for us, especially in the middle of a gunfight, nothing is ever right. Like, if you're in the middle of a gunfight, like, that's bad. You've heard me say on the podcast many times, the only gunfight you win is the one you never, or the only gunfight you win is the one you never get into. Mm-hmm. So if you've gotten into a gunfight, like, shit has gone to hell in a handbasket, right?
Yep.
So I intentionally push my officers that I'm training out of their comfort zone. I intentionally give them like long distance shots to make on small targets, or I make them manipulate their rifle in low light or dark conditions.
You gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's not always during daylight hours where it's nice and calm out and it's 60, 70, 80, 90 degrees. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, I always tell them in the email, show up prepared for like whatever the weather is. No matter what the weather is, unless there's a dangerous weather condition like lightning or a tornado, we're going to be shooting. I don't care if it's snowing, raining, doesn't matter.
I mean, you want to shoot in ideal conditions like most people do, but like when you're in those situations, nothing is ever ideal. It's like, I mean, anything in life, or like farming, for instance, like for like our transplanter to work, it needs to be ideal conditions. And we never have that in farming, and so we're going to have to adapt and move on from the transplanter and do something different, and trying to figure out that process. But putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations will help later on.
Yeah, we recently got LPVOs, which are limited or low power variable optics on our rifles. So essentially they go from 1 power or no magnification all the way up to 6. And so that gives you the opportunity, like if you're clearing a room, you can turn it all the way down to 1 and you basically got just a glorified red dot. Or if you need to make some sort of a long distance shot, you can dial it up and make that long distance shot. Well, we were engaging targets at like 200 yards, a 15-inch steel plate, which is basically a chest-sized target, essentially. And I had one of the officers come up to me and say like, hey, Nick, when am I ever going to be making this shot? Ever. Why? Why are we doing this? Essentially saying this is a waste of my time. And, I wanted to say some other choice words, but I didn't. And I just said, here's the deal. I was like, A, I'm challenging you. B, I was like, you need to prepare for worst case scenario. Like for instance, the Robb Elementary School shooting when we were talking with Bill and stuff. That officer had that guy in his sights and it was about a 150-yard shot.
Yep.
A 150-yard shot on a moving target is stupid hard. And I'm asking him to hit a stationary steel plate at 200. To at least wrap their mind around it. So, and I also told them, I said, if for some reason you end up engaging this target at 200 all day long, when you get to 100 or 50 or 25, that target's going to seem massive, and you're going to be able to hit it all day long. You're going to be able to put pinpoint shots down because you've prepared yourself for that. So my segue on that is like no matter where you're at in your life and what you're doing, like and this is also in the business world is, prepare yourself for that worst case scenario, right? So let's say the economy is doing well and you're going to now start building something and you're going to, get into a lease, or you're going to add more employees, or you're going to do, A, B, C task, whatever that is. Obviously that takes capital to invest. But now you need to start thinking of the contingency plans in the sense of like, okay, what happens?
Crashes?
What happens when the economy crashes? Well, now I'm locked into this 5-year lease on this building, and I've got all these employees. Now I'm going to have to lay them off, but I'm still stuck with a 5-year lease. Then what? So you need to do some of that contingency planning, and you just need to basically, again, push yourself outside that comfort zone, and then also take time to really think through whatever it is that you're doing in the business environment. And that doesn't necessarily mean just the CEO environment, but even if you're just that line level employee of, I plan on accomplishing this or doing that or making this sales call. And if the person tells me like, hey, the economy's bad right now, I don't have the money to invest in that. Like, what's your plan B? Like, what is your contingency plan? Like, do they offer you the ability to work with them on pricing where you can maybe offer some sort of a discount to at least get some sort of a sale versus no sale whatsoever? And so it's just a thing for me of we live that life of comfort and convenience where we're basically working that 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, living for the holidays or living for the weekends and the holidays off. And, we're really not challenging ourselves. And I think that we're getting a little bit soft as a society, and we need to change the culture.
People don't have any grit anymore. They don't want to have to like work for it.
Yeah. And, I've also mentioned here on the podcast, like what some of my intentions are politically, and I got to thinking to myself of being intentional with my actions of like journaling more, going to the gym and getting into the sauna. And like, these are just like these small things that I'm doing to kind of just slowly push myself. Like I'm not going out and running a marathon, right? But like the sauna after a certain period of time, like when you get, like I do it for 20 minutes personally and everybody can do it for whatever time they want. But like when you get to minute, like, 10, 15, you're like, whew, like I'm ready to get out of here, and it's just like, just the small little mental stuff. It's just those small things. It's like going to the gym every day. It's just that small thing. Like you're not going to notice the difference.
And that kind of leads a little bit into mine. I was going to talk about consistency and being consistent in those small things because, like in football, I think we've talked about this before, like the small things is what wins championships, like having your shirts tucked in, having the same uniforms, being consistent across the board. And that helps, like, constantly being consistent. Like, with your political aspirations, like, being consistent on your walks. People are seeing you around, and they're seeing your face, and they're like, oh, we'll see Nick here this time of day, and just that being constant in your whatever you're doing helps.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up, too, because I was actually talking with a guy at church this morning when we had, like, our Thanksgiving church dinner. And he was in the military, and he was telling me about like boot camp and all that other kind of stuff. And it was cool because, he was talking about how like you had to have, your bed made right and your underwear folded a specific way and all this other kind of stuff. And like that he got smoked for 3 hours one time because he didn't have his underwear folded correctly. And a lot of people hear that and see that and they're like, what? That's fucking stupid. But even you have said you've seen the change in the culture even of just like Sterling College football when they weren't holding up those like small things. And everybody sees that as like micromanaging and small things and all this. And it could be that way, right? If that's all you do, like for instance, let's say the coach just wants everybody to have matching socks, but then doesn't work on any plays or anything like that. You're going to be a soup sandwich. It doesn't really matter, right? But it's like, it's a dichotomy, just like,
is it Jocko that talks about the leadership points or whatever, the score? Like you get a certain amount of points, like as a leader, and like if you expend all your points in one spot, like on like your apparel, like that's all they're going to worry about. Then they're not going to worry about the play calling and stuff, And so it's a balancing act in that sense. They
talk about that in reference to when they were wearing unit patches, and Jocko didn't want them to wear unit patches.
Yep.
And it's everything that we talk about on here. It's a dichotomy, and I think you have to have it well rounded, and not just in like sports or being a cop or even the business world. But let's face it, life is what it is. And
it's hard.
I got to see a colleague that was struggling with life that day. For me, what seemed like easy things. But of course, I don't know what's going on, right? Like, I don't know if he's having trouble at home with a wife or whatever. Like, I don't know that. But it was just like the ability to pivot wasn't there. Like, it was like a one-track mind. Like, my shit went to hell in a handbasket, and now I'm essentially, like, I'm not as effective as I could be. And I will tell you, like yesterday, I got a call from my colleague at 11:04 p.m. Hey, are you coming to work? I'm like, hell no, I'm not coming to work. Like, my brain was like, this is my only day off where I didn't have anything planned. I'm going to smoke a pipe, watch some MASH, chill out. He's like, you're on the schedule. I'm like, oh, shit.
I guess I am coming to work.
and I'm the one that made that schedule, so I couldn't even be mad. And so, I had to, like, pivot. And even though I didn't want to be there, like, I still had shit I needed to get done. And I still got it done. Like, it wasn't fun, and it wasn't on the time scale that I wanted to get it done. But I was like, okay, no big deal. Like, but I also have, like, this unique perspective of I've spent the last 20 years on shift work. Like I've literally done shift work for 20 years. So me pivoting my life, that's just every day. Like I'm an expert at that, of figuring out where to fit things in. And I think that like the consistency that you were talking about, like fits that as well. Is it's like it's almost like
constant chaos.
Yeah. Well, it's like being systematically unsystematic, and just being able to like just figure those things out. And also my family's used to it too. You know, they're used to like me just leaving at a whim. Like last night, hey, I got called into work. Oh, okay. Like it wasn't like oh, what happened or why?
Yeah.
Like you never, she's like, okay, see ya. And so I just. If you're listening to this podcast, I hope you're listening to it while you're outside walking in 17-degree weather and just like challenging yourself a little bit.
I know one person is.
Yeah. Dallas, we know that you are, buddy. We know that you're doing that. And it was just interesting to me to see an officer, that we're supposed to have that mental resiliency, and like that's just expected. Struggle. And it was a wake-up call for me, and it was also a little bit of an affirmation for me of like, okay, what you're doing is right, what you're doing is working, like keep up the good work. Not in the sense of like now get comfortable and slow down and like, but what you're doing is doing work. You're accomplishing goals.
And that affirmation, and you're like, okay, let's keep pushing.
Yeah. Again, look in the mirror and you're doing okay. But you got a lot of work to do.
Yep. I mean, it does take a lot of self-reflection. And another thing, like your emotional intelligence and figuring out like, hey, like this person, why are they acting this way? Because a lot of people just look and be like, oh, that guy's just being an asshole today.
Yeah.
And like reading that situation a little bit and having some empathy, I guess, helps the situation too.
Well, and also another thing that I wanted to talk about that I just now popped into my head and I remembered is every single person listening to this podcast, I guarantee, has a boss that they did or didn't like, right? You can learn just as much from a boss that was excellent as you can from a boss that's terrible.
Yep.
But the thing that I want to kind of get at is it's a struggle. And, at the end of the day, you're showing up and you're being paid 8 hours to do 8 hours worth of work, whether you like your boss or not. And again, nobody's forcing you to be there. You could choose to move elsewhere if you want. But, I get if you have a truly evil manager, like I'm talking a truly evil person, like a person that gets off on making you feel bad or putting you down or writing you up or whatever.
I would say that's more rare.
Yeah.
Than not.
Most of the time you have just incompetent leadership of people that are lazy. They're living the life of comfort and ease and they don't want to do anything that rocks the boat and, all that kind of stuff. That's typically what you're going to see in a manager.
Or they don't know how to control their emotions.
Yeah. You just have to figure out a way to navigate those waters, figure out a way to talk to that person, figure out a way to just get the job done and when work through that. And if it's to the point where it's even affecting you and your health or your mental health or whatever, and you want to get out, go for it. But it's just something that you're going to have to work through. You may not like it. You may not agree with it, but it's just a part of doing business. You don't have to go home at the end of the day and like drink a beer with this guy or a girl or whatever and enjoy like being friends with them.
And there's nothing wrong with getting out of your comfort zone and applying for another job.
Yeah.
Because there's jobs aplenty right now. And people are hiring like crazy. And honestly, it's still a labor market.
Well, and Andy's usually right about everything, but I was listening to one of his podcasts last night while I was walking, and he said that like right now companies like Netflix, Disney, Facebook, Twitter are all laying people off. So he says like there's like tens of thousands of people that are entering the job market that have like really incredible skill sets. I mean, like let's face it, if you work for Disney, you're probably a talented person. I mean, even though I don't agree with their value set, the stuff they come out with is like quality, right? And so he talked about how now the market's going to start getting flooded again, and people that are like companies that are smaller like his, which his is not a small company, but compared to Disney, it's a small company, are going to be able to pick up talent like that. So you're actually going to see a shift in that labor market now because of people like big companies laying off. You're actually going to see really talented people entering, and it's going to become more competitive again.
It depends, I think, on the level.
Yeah. Well, if you live in LA, it's going to be different than if you live in Sterling, Kansas.
I mean, you're not going to have a lot of blue collar workers that are exiting those jobs, though. And there's a lot of blue collar jobs open right now.
Yeah. Well, and there you go. If you don't like your boss, you can go work with Nate.
You can. Just apply in the spring.
Just to let you know, Nate's job is definitely not a life of comfort and convenience.
Nope. Push to the max every day.
So that's all I had, man.
That's all I got too. So
cool. Take it away.
Well, guys, thanks for listening to the Higher Points and this episode of To the Point. Sorry we missed a full-length episode last week, but we'll be back with another one next week. And just give us a like on our social medias at the Higher Points. Check out the website, and don't forget that we are renting out the space. And if someone has an idea for a podcast, we can help out with that. So just reach out to us.
We'll catch up with you guys next time. Thanks for listening.